Hello and welcome into the Fantasy Sanctuary. I am joined by another fantastic guest. We've got a rather interesting show joined up for you, but I'm joined by the senior writer and podcaster over at DLF. You will probably know him as the Zookeeper. It is Matt Price, or at Matt Price FF on Twitter. How you doing, Matt?
Doing great, man. I'm excited to talk to you. I've never podcasted with you before. We are in a DLF Podcaster League together, which was a lot of fun. Did you win that one last year? I can't remember.
I didn't want to bring it up. I didn't want to bring it up. If you're going to bring it up, yes,
I'll bring it up.
I did win that league last year. Yeah, I was lucky. It was a very good orphan I took over.
It was.
Yeah, but yeah, it's a lot of fun. But yeah, very excited to get you on today. So, for those of you joining us, we're going to be doing a live startup draft, which it's a little bit chaotic, it's a little bit hectic, but I think it's interesting to see. You put a timer on it, how people react, and you can learn a lot, I think, from a fast draft rather than the traditional slow one. So it's going to be Superflex Titan Premium. Matt, are you more leaning towards Superflex? It seems that the world has sort of transitioned that way over the last kind of 3 or 4 years, or are you more in kind of 1 QB leagues still?
Yeah, I've completely moved over to Superflex, to be honest with you. I still do 1 quarterback for best ball and things like that. It's not occasionally in a redraft league, but for Dynasty specifically, it's all Superflex. I converted the last league that I commissioned from 1 quarterback to Superflex just last year. So every Dynasty league I'm in at this point is Superflex, and I can't really imagine myself joining another 1 quarterback league in a Superflex format, in a Dynasty format.
Yeah, absolutely. It would be a flat no from me, I think, now to join anything 1 QB. I think I've got one final 1 QB league that I've been trying to persuade him to switch over, but it's proving difficult.
It just adds an extra layer of, even if you don't like the starting the 2 quarterback thing, it just raises the value of yet another position and gives you another, form of currency to use in your league for trades and things like that. So even outside of the starting 2 versus 1, if you don't like that, I think it just opens up so many possibilities for team building and things like that. So it's taken over for me. I don't know if we're quite there in terms of like the majority of the community playing Superflex at this point, but I know all of the questions that I get for the most part are Superflex. So it feels like within our little bubble that is taken over. But I realize like the masses that play on the ESPNs and Yahoos and stuff for just primarily redraft leagues, I feel like we're probably at 1 quarterback still is the most popular format.
Yeah, I think sort of traditionalists and people that play in same leagues for 10 plus years, it seems to be the way. I think over here in the UK, I think we saw a massive blow up with the community over the kind of the COVID lockdowns and things. And I think because of that, nearly every kind of UK based league that's formed via Twitter and the community that's created is almost Superflex. I don't know of any that are kind of 1 QB. We're also going to be drafting Titan Premium, Matt. Is that something that you're also becoming more around to, or are you still a Titan traditionalist?
No, I think you have to raise up that position too. And I have a little bit of a different take on it. I think the 1.5 reception, which I think is the most popular tight end premium format at this point, to me, that doesn't feel like enough in most cases. Like it's a nice bump for the top guys, which already, score more than the rest of the position by a significant amount, especially when you get up to Kelsey at the top. But, I think the best way to do it, it's a very difficult format. I played in a couple of them, but 2 tight end leagues where you just like with Superflex leagues, like you can manipulate the quarterback scoring, but it really just doesn't change the game that much when you compared to when you add that second position. And starting 2 tight ends required every week is a brutal format, but that's really the true premium, I think, in tight end. In my leagues that I commission, I've bumped the tight end scoring up to 2 points per reception. So that helps like those lower end tight end 1s, early tight end 2s kind of get up into the flex range of your weekly consideration. But if you really want to increase the value of the position, I think the true premium is adding an extra roster spot or extra starting spot for them.
Yeah, I love that. I'm in two tight end leagues, and I really enjoy the format. I think it's great because it's even more so than the Superflex, because you can pick up a random tight end and chuck them in and just hope that they score a touchdown. You can't really do that with kind of, a quarterback basically. So I think it's a really interesting tweak. I've not seen it a huge amount. As I said, I'm in two two leagues, but I think it would be good if we could try and widen that and try and get that out there a bit more. So we're going to dive straight in and kick off the draft now. So we're drafting from the 2 spot here under my moniker. We'll start the draft. Matt, it feels like there's 2 at the top. Are you buying into that as the top 2?
I'm sorry, I missed that. You cut out the top 2 of.
And it feels like in Superflex leagues there's an elite 2 at the top. Are you a believer in Mahomes and Allen?
I get it, but I'm not. I actually have a quarterback 1. My quarterback 1 in Superflex, who I'll just go ahead and take here, is Lamar Jackson. And I know I'm probably reaching a little bit here. I'd rather be back in like the 105, 106 range. I think you can still get Jackson at that point. But for me, he offers the highest ceiling of any quarterback once that passing comes online. We've seen Lamar Jackson was the quarterback 1, I believe, after week 3 last year, after 2 back-to-back 40-point games. So he just offers the highest ceiling combined passing and rushing to me when everything clicks. And with Todd Monk in there this season, I really am excited to see what he can do under a system that's going to highlight his passing abilities and not just his rushing ability. So I think we're going to see an explosive season like Lamar, maybe not as high as like 2019, but for me, he offers the highest ceiling. And I'm a ceiling player in this game. I want to build teams that are just going to crush the competition. And Lamar Jackson does that for me.
I absolutely love it. I thought that I was high on Lamar, having as my QB4. So for you to have him up there, it's a ringing endorsement. Are you concerned that we've seen, obviously, the last 2 years, he's not finished the season with a mix of niggling injuries? Do you think that's something that could affect that longevity at the position, or are you just thinking when he's on, he's a league winner?
Yeah, that's kind of how I'm playing it. I mean, the injury the last 2 seasons are a concern. I think he played 11 full games each of the last 2 seasons. And, I think this Dynasty is a long haul game, right? And when you think about it, when you zoom out, but really in season, it's a weekly game. So I want to put together the best weekly team possible. And I think it was Edward Poirier, and I forget where he's at, maybe over at Fantasy Points, forgive me if I'm wrong on that, but I think he did a study that shows that rushing quarterbacks are actually less likely to get injured than pocket quarterbacks, just because they can, they're already in the mindset that they're going to get hit, that they're going to be avoiding it, whereas those pocket passers are going to be getting blindsided by those blindside rushers coming off the edge, not necessarily seeing those hits. So it's hard to say that that's true based on the last 2 seasons with Lamar Jackson, but his data proves it enough for me that I'm willing to go ahead and take the risk there and have that upside in my lineup. And with my super flex leagues, as we'll see, I typically have 3, 4, sometimes 5 quarterbacks that I can start. So I'll just plug in the next guy if Jackson tends to miss a week.
No, I love it. It's a really interesting point you made there about the kind of injury thing. I got into it far too detailed with Peter Howard earlier in the offseason where we were talking about it. And actually, if you watch Lamar, it's not just that when he's running, he braces for impact, but at the point of impact, he tends to kind of jump and almost leaves his feet so that he doesn't get that same level of contact because he's already in the air. So if you look at the worst injuries that quarterbacks can get are those ankle and knee injuries come when there's a body part grounded on the floor, whereas he's not getting those because he's so often both feet are in the air at the point of contact.
Yeah.
And yet it means that he's not taking as big a hit. So I think it's a really interesting point. Coming right back around here for the second pick. Obviously, we've seen, as usual, that the first round, it feels like it's kind of chalk with all the quarterbacks, Chase and Jefferson. Are you looking at another quarterback here? Are you thinking somebody else?
Yeah, I'm trying to scroll the draft board here. Usually I do like to go double up on quarterback if I can get 2 of those top 7 to 8 guys. But it looks like pretty much all those guys are gone. So I might be swinging at wide receiver here. Am I on the clock? I think the board isn't updating.
You got one more. So yeah, so you've got a quarterback best available. You've got Bryce Young, Dak Prescott. At receiver, it's Jalen Waddle, Chris Olave, T. Higgins.
Yeah. I think I'm going to go ahead and grab, if he's there at the time, I'm going to go ahead and grab Olave here. He's currently my wide receiver 6, I believe. Wide receiver 5 or 6, right behind Garrett Wilson there. So, and since I'm at 102 after the turn, I feel like there's going to be a quarterback or another wide receiver that I really like available.
Nice. And we'll talk about the Olave pick after, because I'm conscious we're back on quite quickly again. Oh no, it's third round reversal. I've completely done myself. Are you thinking that the car edition is a big upgrade for Olave this year?
I don't know if it's a big upgrade. You know, Dalton was pretty efficient last season. I think where it's going to come down is the deep ball. And Carr isn't necessarily known for his deep ball either, but he has shown when he has an elite target that he's going to feed that target. And with Adams last year, you know, there were questions about the downgrade from Rodgers to Carr. It just didn't matter. And Olave certainly isn't on the level of Adams yet, but I think he could be. So I'm very excited to see him get fed, and after a second complete off season with the coaching staff, and the first one with Carr, obviously. But Michael Thomas, you know, supposedly is going to be back, so that'll take out some pressure underneath for him. And I just think he's a really exciting player who's going to be considered in the top. Right. He's already kind of right below the Jefferson Chase tier, but I think he's going to pass up guys like AJ Brown probably in rankings this season.
Yeah, I think he's going to be such a reliable kind of source of production, because I just think that the way he runs routes, the way he can get open, even a bad week is still going to be 5-6 targets for kind of 50-60 yards, and it doesn't kill you as such.
Exactly.
Whilst we're here, 15 people watching live, only got 7 likes. If you're watching, hit that like. Make sure you're also hitting that subscribe. We've got plenty more content coming over the next few days. We're coming up for your third round pick here, Matt. We're QBs. It's still similar names. So CJ Stroud, Daniel Jones, Kirk Cousins. Are you thinking you've got to go and grab a QB here, or would you be looking somewhere, you know, Saquon's still available?
Yeah, this 3RR kind of messed me up a little bit. No. It's an interesting puzzle to figure out here. You know what? At this point, do we have? I'm already missed. Is Tua still on the board?
Tua's just gone a couple of picks before. Yeah,
Tua just went a couple of picks before. Dak Prescott, I assume, is gone.
Yeah, Dak's gone.
So we're in like to the tier with the rookie quarterbacks, right? Watson's off the board. We've got Bryce Young and Stroud. I don't think I'm going to go that way. So I am going to come back to wide receiver. I think, actually, you know what? I'm going to grab my guy. I'm going to grab the guy who I stand for. I think we actually made a trade for him in our league last year. I'm going to just do it. I'm going to take Kyle Pitts here.
As soon as you said you're going to grab your guy, I wanted to bring up the trade, but again, you've done it for me. So yeah.
I don't remember exactly what I gave you, but I'm sure it was too much. It felt good at the time, but it was probably a massive package.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly. I think it was an awful lot. It was pretty much at the sell high window, wasn't it? It was just before the season started when all the hype was out of control. So yeah. That trade probably helped me win the title. Let's be honest. But you know, if he bounces back this year, you could end up winning the trade in a long term. So we will see.
All right.
Now back in the fourth.
We're back up here, and I'm sorry, I'm really struggling to see the draft board a little bit here. Do we still got those rookie quarterbacks on there available?
So two of them are gone. So Young and Richardson have gone. We got CJ Stroud, Daniel Jones is still available, and then you got the kind of safe, unsexy tier of Kirk Cousins, Jared Goff.
Yeah. I'm going to go. I'm going to go ahead and grab Stroud here to just get a locked-in starter. This is an offense that I think is going to be on the upswing. I wish they would have come back instead of trading up for Will Anderson, come back at 12 and taken JSN there to pair with them. But you know, I think I might be on an island on this one too. But I really like Tank Dell. I think he's going to his abilities to just be open all of the time are going to transfer to the NFL. And, you know, say what you want about the rumors about Stroud wanting him directly in the draft, wanting Houston to select them as well. But, you know, I think there is something to be said about that. We saw it with Burrow when he said, go get Chase for me. You so we saw it with Tua when he wanted them to go get Waddle over Devonta Smith, and both of them obviously turned out to be great players. But I really like it when these quarterbacks are kind of picking their receiving options when the team allows them to give input like that. So Stroud is definitely the third option from those top three rookie quarterbacks, but I still think he's going to be a fine pro and probably settle in as a back end quarterback one for fantasy.
Hey, you're going to come on this pod and talk up Tank Dell. It's always going to get celebrated. I'm a big Tank Dell believer. I'm the one who stands up and says size and weight don't matter. So yeah, I'm a big believer in Tank Dell. I think the way he runs routes, the way he gets open, I'm really excited for what he could be at the next level. So yeah, I'm all in as well.
I mean, I don't want to turn this into a Take Dell show unless you want to, but I just think he challenges the questions of why we care about size. And, two of those reasons for me are injury related. He didn't miss a game in college, and ability to score touchdowns. And he proved that he can do that as well in college. And obviously the NFL is a big jump, different offense, a little bit of a gimmicky offense there at Houston. That's going to put up a lot of points, especially through the air. But I just don't know. Like every time I turn on the tape of him, he was open all the time. Never, like no one ever was able to cover him, whether it's short, whether it's long, whether it's on the boundary, on the sidelines. He just found a way to get open for his quarterback. And but to me, the ability to separate and get open, other than the ability to catch, is the most important thing for me at the wide receiver position.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the thing that gets forgotten is you look at the guys that have been small, fast, but haven't succeeded, whether it be Andy Isabella, KJ Hamler, Tutu Atwell in recent years. For me, the difference is that they've all been deep threats, not route technicians. Whereas Tank Dell is, I called him the best route runner in the draft last year, and I stand by that. I think he is an electric route runner that can get open and doesn't just have to be a deep threat. Yes, he can be a deep threat, but he doesn't have to be a deep threat.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like we also missed out on your opportunity to talk about Kyle Pitts, so we can go back and talk about some Kyle Pitts love.
Go ahead.
Are you excited about this year? Do you think he bounced back and gets back to where we were all hoping he was at the beginning of last year?
It's really tough because you look at his efficiency numbers and they were actually better than his rookie season, right? The yards per route run, targets per route run, things like that. The problem with that offense, is the passing volume. And so it is certainly a concern, certainly a question if they are going to be able to become a more prolific passing offense with Desmond Ridder. I certainly have my doubts about that, but both he and London, like the funnel of targets is those two. Like that's the passing game, right? In my opinion, are those two players, and Bijan is going to get his, I'm sure, in the passing game as well. But the upside is, again, I'm a ceiling player, and he has the highest ceiling of any tight end, and I'm still willing to pay a decent price to get him. I'll still pay a first if that's what's required for him. All right, so we're back up. We got to grab a quarterback here, probably. It's kind of gross, isn't it? Yeah. But that's okay. That's okay. We can mine for diamonds here. For me, I think the favorite out of the groups that I see on the screen is Geno Smith. And this is another offense that I think is, so I'll go ahead and grab him here. But for Geno Smith, I think in the Seattle offense, everybody wants to, and we can tie JSN into this conversation as well, that we want to look to the past of what the Seahawks have been, and they just want to run the ball, and they reinforce that by taking another second round running back. But they also spent a first round pick on the most dynamic receiver in this class, somebody who has a 3-cone, I think it's 6'5", the same as a guy like Christian McCaffrey. I think he's going to be open at will. And Geno, I think, is going to be the beneficiary of that. We have a 3 wide receiver offense. We have Shane Waldron there, who is a disciple of Sean McVay. We know that he can use 3 wide receiver sets. And I think this is the offense we're going to see going forward. The running backs are still going to get theirs too, but I really think all 3 of these receivers can be productive. And Geno is going to be the beneficiary of that.
I think it's going to be a really interesting offense. I think we're going to see them push the ball down the field. I think that's where Geno excelled last year. And I think it's hopefully another fantastic year for him. Coming back around after the turn, is there any particular position, any particular players that you're eyeing up, targeting here?
Yeah, we're going to stick with a wide receiver here for sure. We've got guys like Pickens and Pittman on the board, McLaurin. I think I'm going to stay young, and I think it's Man, it's probably a very risky pick at this point. We know he's going to miss 6 games, but I'm going to go to Jameson Williams. He's a player that I really loved last season. Obviously the injury and then the one catch for 40 yards and a touchdown, I believe, was the only thing he did in his few games that he was able to suit up last season. Now we have this gambling stuff behind him. So from the macro perspective, like it's tough with Jameson Williams, but from what you saw on film that last season at Alabama, just a master of the ability to use his speed, the way he can decelerate and just stop on a dime and then reaccelerate back to full speed, I think is going to be a problem for NFL defenses once he finally gets on the board and we see the quarterback around here. I suspected that might happen. I thought about grabbing a third quarterback. Go ahead and grabbing a third quarterback there. Oh, I already got 3. I thought about grabbing a 4th quarterback there, but that's okay. These guys are all kind of in the same tier. We might have broken that tier open.
Yeah, I think
but that's okay.
You grabbing your 3rd, I think, has forced because nobody else only 2 other teams had 2. So you have completely forced that quarterback run, which is great to see because it means, further value dropping down the board. I know you said you ideally want 4. Would you allow that run to happen and look to scoop up value at other positions, or are you now thinking I need to go and get my 4th?
Oh no, I think with this tier getting pretty much cleaned out, like I'm willing to wait at this point. I mean, what was that, 7-8 picks that went before another wide receiver went. So I am typically I don't like to take declining assets, so to speak, in the first 4 to 5 rounds of a startup, and we're well past that. So Geno, you could argue, was a declining asset because of age, but second year into his whatever you want to call it, his resurrection, so to speak. I think he's still got plenty of time left to produce for us, but we are getting to that point where I don't mind taking the older players if I'm going to try to compete for this season. I will say that in general, the last couple of seasons I've gone into startups trying to do that Brian McDowell productive struggle. When I first started playing Dynasty, I was definitely a win now player only. I didn't care about ages. I didn't care about any of that stuff. But it's very difficult to. If you go with a complete win now approach and you don't win it in year 1 or year 2, and you've moved off of young assets or draft picks or whatever it is, that 3rd, 4th year is very difficult to get into a rebuild without something to move. And if all of your assets are 28, 29, 30 years old, it's a tough road. So I have gone to more of a productive struggle strategy, but I'm also a player that I've been playing this game for 25 years. So I like to put myself in rough situations and like figure out new puzzles, like put myself in positions that I've never been in for and try to dig myself out of them. So I kind of change up my strategy for each startup, but I will say that I've tended to go more youth heavy in recent years.
Yeah, I quite like that. I set myself a challenge of trying to find the worst orphan I can each year and take over one.
Yeah.
This is my 4 years on the trot. My orphan I took over 2 years ago, which was horrendous. I got to the final last year, and that's like my greatest achievement in Dynasty because it basically had nothing. In the space of 2 years, I managed to resurrect it and turn it around, and not quite.
It's a great feeling, man. It's a great feeling. If it's just a team with absolutely nothing on it, if you can become a playoff team the second year, if you take it over and maybe compete for a title the 3rd year, like that's such a good feeling to resurrect that. And then if you have to leave the league at that point, too much time commitment, whatever, you feel good because you've created a team that is more valuable for the league to find a new manager for.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're coming up here for your 7th round pick. Before we get that, if you're watching and you've not subscribed, hit that little subscribe button. We're in best ball season. Tom's got so much more best ball content. I've got a couple of little series coming up in the next couple of weeks that hopefully going to give you some more content to feast on. Matt, in the 7th round, we've got 3 QBs, tight ends, 2 wide receivers. Are we thinking wide receiver again, or
we're going to go? We are definitely going wide receiver again. I think we're in this range of running backs where, it's. You know what? I'm totally going to lie to you. I lied to you. I am going to take a running back here. I didn't realize that we still had Dameon Pierce on the board. So we'll go ahead and grab him. I think we're going to be okay at wide receiver going forward. We're kind of getting into a flat tier there. And Pierce, he's in a little bit of a flat tier himself there, but I think he offers the best combination of of youth and ceiling than the last several picks for sure. I definitely would have taken them over Pacheco, Sanders, and Swift. They all have their issues, I think. Swift, is he going to be anything for the Eagles? It's hard for me to wrap my mind around Swift with the Eagles because his best asset is pass catching, and they don't throw to the running backs, right? Sanders, he's fine, whatever. Anyway, Pierce is good, so we are gonna go back to wide receiver here now that we got one running back, so we're okay there. So at wide receiver, mind pulling up? Oh, there we go. Pulling up those options at the top. Yeah, these are very good options. I think that all of these guys are kind of a little bit undervalued right now, whether it's Godwin or Kirk or Deontay, any of these guys. But we're going to go down the board. And maybe a bit of a reach, but I'm going to stack up Lamar Jackson with Rashod Bateman here. The injuries has really derailed him, but we saw those first 3 weeks last season. Those were quarterback 1, quarterback 2, I think, for Lamar Jackson, and it was really down to Bateman. And once Bateman was gone, we knew it was going to happen. Once Bateman was down, he had nobody else to throw to. So I think Bateman is going to be a key piece of this offense, as long as he's healthy. I don't know. Maybe you can get him a little bit later, but I would like to grab him here since we're 22 picks away from our next one.
Knowing a few of the people drafting back end of this round at the turn, I think you probably would have struggled to get him around in the next round. So I think that's a decent grab there. I'm a massive Rashod Bateman fan. I'm super excited about what he could be.
Yep.
Are you a little bit concerned? They've spent a first round pick on Zay Flowers. They've brought on Odell Beckham and quite frankly paid him a ridiculous amount of money for a 1-year contract. Are you a little bit concerned that they're almost telling us that they're concerned about Bateman by adding in all these other options?
Well, to me, it feels like a situation. I think you can definitely have some level of concern about it, especially now. I think he just got some injection in his foot. So here we go again with the stuff. Is he going to play? Is he not? So that is certainly concerning as well. But, this was, like I said, this team was their wide receiver one were guys like DeMarcus Robinson and Devin Duvernay and Ricky Prochet, guys like that. Like, they just needed to add a bunch of wide receivers to get themselves back up to, being an average wide receiver core. And I certainly think Zay Flowers has the talent to be the one in that offense if that's the way it comes down. But I'm generally like not a too many mouths to feed argument kind of guy. Like I think when you add talent to the receiving crew, you're kind of opening up a bigger, like the whole pie is bigger, right? So even if his target share remains similar, I just think lifting up the entire offense is going to make Rashod Bateman also a better player. So he's not going to be the only one out there. He's not going to be the only focus of the opposing defense, So I could see that argument, but I just think the too many mouths to feed argument is sometimes kind of a crutch that we go back to when we see a bunch, it doesn't matter for T. Higgins really, right? And he's got Jamar Chase there. Tyler Boyd even has huge games. It didn't really matter for Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Both of them got there. So when you add pieces to an offense that improves it, I think it makes everybody better for the most part.
And I think this is going to be a different offense this year. I think there's, you see people talk about the Ravens and how they run first. I think that's gone. Tom Monken is going to be a very different offensive coordinator.
Absolutely.
I think, part of the reason is they've re-signed Lamar. I think they want to turn him into more of a pocket passer. You saw when he had his MVP season, he was still super efficient in the passing game. And I think that they can lean on him more. And hopefully, even if Rashod Bateman keeps a similar target share, the whole volume of the offense increases. That means more targets to go around. That means that same target share means more targets, better production, doesn't it? Without having to see a bigger slice of the pie. It's just a bigger pie overall.
Absolutely.
So we're coming round thick and fast to your 9th rounder. Are you targeting any particular position? Any players that you think could be good value here?
I think I expected Christian Kirk to be gone long ago, so I think we're just going to grab him. I feel a little bit underweight on wide receiver since we grabbed that third quarterback a little bit early. I think we're going to go Christian Kirk here, someone who everyone's very excited about, Calvin Ridley, and I am too, coming back, but he hasn't played football in a very long time. We've seen long layoffs affect players coming back numerous times, whether you want to talk about Deshaun Watson last season. I'm struggling to come up with another name on top of my head right now, but we've seen these long layoffs kind of affect players. But Christian Kirk, signed that huge deal. He was the laughing stock of the league, and now he's back and has the rapport with Trevor Lawrence in an up and coming offense. So I love that. We got 4 wide receivers here. We probably could use another one, but I think we are going to go back to running back with Charbonnet there at the top of the board. So we'll go ahead and grab him to give us a little bit at running back. I'm starting to come. You tell me how you feel about it. Like we talked about the Seattle offense a little bit already, but I'm starting to come around to the idea that maybe the coaching staff is going to prefer Zach Charbonnet to be the lead guy. I'm trying to pull up some stats I have here right now on Kenneth Walker.
I think that,
go ahead.
For me, I think that Zach Charbonnet is a solid, safe, reliable, will get you 4 to 5 yards a carry, will move the chains, will do everything that you ask of him, but probably doesn't have that elite burst, that elite ceiling to kind of blow open a game. And I think, to me, Seattle is basically saying Kenneth Walker was good in spurts. He had some really good points. He had some nice breakaway runs. But if you look at his success rate and things like that, he wasn't actually that consistent. And I think that Seattle is saying, we value and need somebody that's just going to do what we need. And okay, he doesn't have that home run potential, but actually, because of the weapons we've got in the rest of the offense, because hopefully the defense is going to take a step forward, they don't need the running back to go and win in games. They just need him to move the chains and not lose in games, basically.
Yeah, and I don't think that, I don't think Walker, like those big plays are going to go away. But here's some stats on Walker that tends to make me agree with you. 12.7% of his carries went for 10 plus yards, but 23.7% of his carries went for 0 or negative yards. He had 12 of Seattle's 16 goal to go carries and only scored 2 touchdowns. And he had this PFF success rate metric. He was the second worst back in the league, only to James Robinson. So I agree with you. I think they're going to value that consistency from him. He's going to offer some in the passing game if they want to throw to the running back. He can play. He can play all 3 downs if they want him to, and then bring Walker in as the home run threat. And between the 20s, that kind of play with a guy like Kenneth Walker. So. Yeah, I agree with you. I think he's going to be fine. Like I think everybody else, the initial reaction was like, "Oh God, I love Charbonnet," but now he's in this situation. But the more and more I think about it, I think it's going to work out for both of them.
And the most exciting thing for me was that I didn't really peg Charbonnet as a great pass catcher. I thought he was all right.
Yeah, he's fine.
The fact that the Seahawks came out immediately after the draft and started talking him up as a pass catcher, he's going to be our 3rd down back. That's exciting for fantasy because those are the high value touches. Those are the touches that we want. I don't really care about carries between the 20s. I want goal line touches and I want targets. So if he's going to get those, then great.
Yeah, and it makes he's not the same kind of player. I think maybe not like that much less athletic, but somebody like Ramondre Stevenson. Geez. A bigger back who can catch passes, and it's probably a little bit more athletic than Charbonnet, but I don't see him as hugely more athletic than him. So those big backs that catch patches, those are like, that's that like it's me in the heart. Like I want a player that's 210, 220 pounds and can also catch passes. The little running backs, like I really like the guys like Devon A-Chain, Jahmyr Gibbs to a little bit of lesser extent, the smaller guys, they can catch a ton of passes. But when you're a big back and catch passes, you get both sets of high leverage touches. You get the goal line touches, you get the touchdown equity, and you get those targets like you mentioned. That's what we want from our running backs: our touchdown equity and pass game targets.
Absolutely. And you touched on Christian Kirk before. I know we talked about the Calvin Ridley edition, people are scared of, but I'm expecting Trevor Lawrence and this entire offense to take a big step forward. Are you buying into that? And
Absolutely. Yeah. Like I think like they made a bunch of luxury picks. They drafted this year like a team that didn't have a ton of needs. And when you look at the roster, like there's not a ton of holes now that they have added a guy like Calvin Ridley, who, if he gets back to his form, can be a true NFL wide receiver 1 in this league. And Christian Kirk, his best spot on a field was always in the slot, and they've used him extensively that way. So they got a coaching staff there that is going to drive this team forward, I think. So I'm very excited for year 2 of this Doug Peterson team.
Yeah, I think that the Calvin Ridley edition will hopefully see Christian Kirk see some higher value touches. He can go back to that speed slot option. Hopefully we see that ADOT increase, and he's not having to run those intermediate routes. He can instead stretch the field and get balls downfield rather than 6-7 yards downfield. You're up on the clock here in the 11th.
We need some wide receivers. We got to go wide receiver here.
More receivers. So we're looking at, we've got some of the older guys, Hopkins, Juju, Cook, Sutton, Sky Moore still there.
Man, it's pretty flat, isn't it? Yeah, it is. Geez. Let's go back to running back, see what we got going on there. David, you know what? I really like. I'm gonna take AJ Dillon here. This is a passing. I am a Packer fan, and AJ Dillon has not lived up to his billing yet, but it's coming one of these years. And with Jordan Love in town, we have no idea really what this passing game is going to look like. We did upgrade the receiving weapons this season pretty well in the draft. But to me, Aaron Jones is still probably if you want to throw Reed and Christian Watson as the 2 top passing game targets, I think Jones is going to be the most consistent of those. And AJ Dillon at some point is going to take over this. To me, the reason why they drafted AJ Dillon in the first place is for the end of the season, like the Derrick Henry mode, when we just want to pound teams at the end of the season when it's cold and nobody wants to tackle you. And at some point, that's going to materialize for Dillon. He's an underrated pass catcher in his own right. Looks like we're back on the clock again.
Indeed.
Let's go to wide receiver. I just feel really underweight on wide receiver with this team.
You talked about wanting to grab a 4th quarterback, so you still got Will Levis, Jimmy G. Yeah. It gets pretty thin after that. But
I think we're going to have to wait. I think we're going to have to keep waiting on quarterback. Maybe there's just too many. I mean, the tier is very flat, but I'm going to go with Courtland Sutton here, and he's not a player that I've ever been super high on, and I don't know if he's, there was a lot of rumors that he was going to be traded during the draft or just after the draft when they went up and got Marvin Mims, who I absolutely love. But Sutton is there. They've got a new coach with Sean Payton. Like, it's hard to pick too many better coaches than Sean Payton. So I think there's still something left with Courtland Sutton there. I certainly prefer Judy and Mims from a dynasty standpoint, but I'll take Sutton there.
I feel like I'm beginning to stand on an island on my own, but the more I dive into things this year, the more I'm leaning Sutton over Judy at cost.
Okay.
Now, I'd still prefer
Judy.
Judy.
Sure, at cost, yeah.
But I just think that Sutton is a more natural fit to what Sean Payton tends to prefer in those big-bodied outside receivers. The smaller guys that he uses are basically speed deep threats. He doesn't tend to use smaller guys underneath very often. And whilst Jerry Jeudy can do that, I don't think that's using Jerry Jeudy to his utmost. You also look at, I broke down a little while ago, the stats between Jerry Jeudy versus man and versus zone. And Jerry Jeudy averaged over 4 yards per route run versus man coverage last year, which is an insane number.
Yeah.
And you think most people would look at it and go, oh, that's great. To me, I look at that and say, that's so unsustainable. Because the next best receiver was at like 2.8.
Yeah.
That's got to regress. So to me, that says that he was insanely efficient last year versus man coverage. We've now got a new offense that's going to use him differently. There's all sorts of talk. They paid Sutton, they paid Tim Patrick. They've yet to pay Jerry Jeudy. I'm just wondering and a little bit concerned that Jerry Jeudy could be the odd man out. And it's Tim Patrick and Courtland Sutton, the big bodies, and they've basically told us that they've drafted Jerry Jeudy's replacement in Marvin Mims. So I may have egg on my face, but that's kind of the way I'm leaning at the moment.
Well, and you can totally, I mean, I can squint and close my eyes and see Courtland Sutton playing that kind of Michael Thomas role, right? Like that, if there's going to be a player that's going to play that role, that's not really necessarily how Sutton has been used in his career. But, we do see these guys that rely more on their ball skills, less on their athleticism as they get older to really transition into that big slot. We've seen that over and over throughout the NFL, whether we want to go back to guys like, the Texans wide receiver that went to the Colts, AJ.
Texans? Andre Johnson.
Andre Johnson, geez, what a brain fart there. Guys like that have transitioned into becoming more big slot players, and so to me, I agree with you. I think Sutton could absolutely fill that role.
Yeah. So we're coming up here in the 13th. Are you at this point just thinking I'm just going to keep hammer wide receiver until basically the value disappeared and then scoop up running backs late, or
I think it's running back and wide receiver. Can we look at tight end? Because I did spend a lot on getting upper tight end, but see, these are guys that I think are available at the end of your draft, right? The nice thing about these guys in a tight end premium is that they can be flexed in some weeks, but they're all kind of the same, right? I think Gerald Everett offers maybe a little bit more upside than the other guys, but these guys, I think they're all flat. It doesn't matter who you pick. So we're not going to take a tight end here. Let's go to receiver one more time. And you know what? I'm going to grab another one. There's two of my favorite later round targets on the board. Maybe we'll get both of them. I'm going to grab Rondale Moore here. Rondale Moore, I did have some stats on him somewhere, but I don't know if I can pull them up fast. Here we go. He's played in 22 games over his first two seasons, started 15. He's earned 8 or more targets in 7 of those games. And in those 7 games averaged almost 10 targets a game, almost 8 receptions a game, 77 yards and 17.24 fantasy points per game. That would have placed him as wide receiver 9 last year over the course of the season. He's played 4 games with Colt McCoy. And in 2 of those, one of them, he caught 11 of 11 targets. And then the second one, he caught 9 out of 13 targets for 94 yards. So if we have Colt McCoy as our starter again, I see lots of things close to the line of scrimmage. And Rondale Moore, I think, is going to take advantage of that. And we'll take the other guy I was thinking here as well, a little bit more of a risky play, but I think I saw Wan'Dale Robinson on the board still. Yeah, somebody who came out. Now, this one is a little bit scary just because of what the Giants have done at wide receiver. It seems like they've just decided we're going to take 50 slot receivers and throw them out and see what happens. And, Daniel Jones was successful with that, but it would have been nice to see. I guess we got Jalen Hyatt as a deep threat, but he's also a slot primary player, which is going to make his transition to the NFL even more difficult coming out of that Tennessee gimmicky kind of offense where he was just schemed open all the time, right? So Wan'Dale has the rapport with Daniel Jones. He is coming off the injury, but I just really liked what I saw last year from a small player. And I think he's probably the best out of those slot options that they have, even though they have a million of them. It's just going to kind of have to see how it works out on the field, I guess.
It feels like, because the report side looks like Jalen Hyatt, they're going to try and play outside, which I don't think is a smart thing, but if they would have done it, fine. But it feels like the reason Wan'Dale Robinson is going so cheap is because basically everybody's looked at them signing a load of journeyman free agents on vet minimum contracts and gone, oh, there's loads of slot options. But, if we're seriously getting scared off by Jamison Crowder, Sterling Shepard coming off yet another injury,
Paris
what are we doing?
Well,
Paris Campbell's apparently going to play running back for him now. So, it's I have no idea what this offense is going to be. I have no idea what they're going to do, but I with you. I believe in buying into the talent and the glimpses that we saw last year, because he did flash, and he's the kind of player and the kind of role that's going to get significant volume if he gets it right. So exactly. I like the pick. And going back to your Rondale Moore selection, so I have to say I liked Rondale Moore. Hearing you reel off all those stats, I'm more excited. I'm going to go and dive into some more Rondale Moore. So there's massive target hog walking out the offense, obviously, in DeAndre Hopkins. Marquise Brown's on the final year of his contract, could walk in free agency. The Cardinals going to want to pay him big money to keep him. So do you think that Rondale Moore could be, target leader for the Cardinals maybe this year, or do you think he's going to be that kind of number 2 in that offense behind Brown?
I think Brown, it just depends on how they're going to use him. He's traditionally a deep threat guy, and without Kyler in there, I don't think they have a quarterback can really throw deep. So he's going to have to evolve his game a little bit. And I know he did that last season, early in the year, before that team just turned into a complete dumpster fire, right? But if Rondale Moore is healthy, which has always been his biggest issue since his freshman year in college when he put up that incredible season, I just think the way that this team is structured in 2023 can put him in that 90 to 100 target range pretty easily. And maybe even more than that. And we did see him his rookie season in a couple of games used in a downfield role. And I think he can win that way. But obviously, I think the stuff near the line of scrimmage is really where we're going to get that PPR cheat code stuff coming out. We still got a starting quarterback on the board.
Yeah, someone's in the chats asking about Ryan Tannehill. Do you think that there's some value to be had there at the 15th round?
I don't think he's done in the NFL. Like, I think we do. Just the team could be so bad that we certainly see Will Levis this year, but I think it's not going to be until it's clear that the Titans are out of the playoffs. Like, think about the kind of genetic makeup of that team with Mike Vrabel and like never giving up, never not being win now, right? So I think he's going to start for most of the season. And, you know, the weapons are a little bit rough. I'm not going to lie, but I really like Treylon Burks this year. I really like Chigozie Okonkwo this year. And if he doesn't last the whole season to start this year, I think he's going to start somewhere next season. I think he's one of the top 32 teams in the quarterback. So even if it doesn't work out for this season as a quarterback 4 here, I'm just going to go ahead and take him. I mean, I like a starting quarterback in the 15th round is in a super flex league is too hard to pass up, no matter how you feel about that player.
Yeah, I think the thing with Tannehill is that his contract has almost hindered him. Yeah, because I think that if he'd have been on a quite frankly, cheaper contract that the Titans could have moved. Now, I think it was about 35 million in their cap that they would have had to eat. Then they probably would have cut him, or, they could have traded him. And sure, let's be honest, he's a better starting quarterback than a lot of the other teams that are rolling out. Would the Bucs prefer to be starting Ryan Tannehill than Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask right now? 100%. And I think that whatever happens this year, it's probably the final year of him playing for the Titans. And then he's going to be a free agent next year and is in that kind of bridge quarterback. So maybe instead of in the 15th round, you don't just get this year. You might get maybe 1-2 years of that sort of Andy Dalton, bridge, Teddy Bridgewater type quarterback. But with his rushing production, that's going to be fantasy relevant.
Well, and I think there are also several places where he can end up where he elevates the offense a little bit. Like if he was in Atlanta, I sure would feel a lot better about Pitts and London this year than I do with Ritter. And if Ritter doesn't work out, like that division is so bad, I don't think they're going to be in a position where they're going to be able to select a top quarterback in next year's class. So if Ritter is not the guy, what are they going to do? Arthur Smith can call his old buddy Ryan Tannehill, and under Arthur Smith, he had like a 71.5% completion percentage. I think 2 years ago was, I don't know if he was number 1 in the league, but he was like top 5 or something in completion percentage efficiency from that position. So I absolutely think he still has a future in the league.
Yeah, people are annoyed that they mentioned that he was still available and didn't fall back to him. That's your own fault. So talk us through your draft here. So obviously we went quarterbacks early. So we've got Lamar, CJ Stroud, Geno in the first 5 rounds. You added in Olave, Pitts, smashing wide receivers, but scooped up some value at running back. Is there, how are you feeling about your draft?
I feel like I'm a little bit light at wide receiver. I mean, it's hard when you take a third quarterback. I'm almost always going to take 2 quarterbacks pretty early, but the third one kind of messes with your wide receiver group. Can you scroll up just a little bit there? But the thing was, I feel like at that when I took Geno there, the wide receiver, it just felt pretty flat. I guess I probably, if I was looking more, if I was like doing this as a slow draft or something, was really more thinking about it, maybe I would have taken a guy like Christian Watson, maybe Quentin Johnson, probably Watson in that situation, just to give me a second, solid young wide receiver that's going to score some points this year. But I don't feel that bad about that pick, considering the rest of the players that went after him, other than Watson, really. So like this looks like a pretty good draft for me. Pitts was probably a little pricey. I probably could have got him in the 4th, maybe the 5th round. I think he's going in the 6th on an underdog drafts right now. So maybe that was a little pricey. But after Kelsey and Andrews, there's no tight end that I want more than Pitts. And selecting that guy early, if he hits, I mean, he's more, if he hits, he's going to more than pay off of that cost, I think. So wide receiver, I'd say I feel a little bit weak at, but otherwise this looks like a typical draft for me.
Yeah, no, it's nice. And we didn't really touch on Dameon Pierce. So are you expecting a big second year? Are you expecting him to kind of really take full ownership of that backfield, or?
Yeah, I just see him as someone who has a very clear path to just a ton of touches. An older guy an older player that I feel similarly about would be somebody like Nick Chubb, somebody who just like the backup, the second guy is just so far removed in terms of talent from Pearson and Devin Singletary. I don't know. If Houston decides they just want a reliable running back who's probably not going to fumble and is going to get 3 or 4 yards on every carry, probably going to be Devin Singletary. But Pierce, we saw, offers far more upside than that. Love his aggressive running style. He's shown that he can play in the passing game, which is something that Singletary has not really done throughout his career. Maybe it's because he was in Buffalo. I don't know. But Pierce is definitely that guy. And I think he's going to get those high value touches. He's not, he has more size than Devin Singletary does. So he's going to get those high value touches on the goal line, and he's going to get the receptions. And again, those are the two things we want. So I think he's being a little bit undervalued right now, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think that we're expecting this entire offense to take another step forward again. And it's, the same point we made about Bateman and Lamar. If this whole offense is taking a step forward, that means, more opportunities, because there's going to be more prolonged drives, more red zone opportunities because they're going to be in and around the goal line more often, which means more scoring, which, hopefully if he keeps the same sort of target shares and volume that he had last year, but the offense takes a step forward, that means his fantasy production is probably going to be better than it was last year.
And the offensive line they did some work on as well, so that was a concern last season. They did a good job. I think they re-signed Tunsil, or maybe extended him or something
paid
like
an
that.
obscene amount of money for Larry
A lot of
Tunsil,
money, right?
And then they traded for Shaq Mason, didn't they?
Yep.
And Kenyon Green's got second year, first round pick last year, so you'd hope that he takes a step forward as well. So
just by elevating the quarterback position in the offensive line, I think you have to be more excited for the running game there. And do we want to make somebody feel good? Do you want to pick a best team from this?
Oh, that's tough. I've not been looking at any of the others.
I haven't
anyone
either.
That you particularly like?
Let's see.
I'll tell you what.
I was going to say
Racer. I don't normally like it when somebody doesn't take quarterback early, but he's kind of got lucky in terms of he's got Tua in the 3rd and Rodgers in the 6th, and then he grabbed Jimmy G later. So a little bit older with Rodgers and Jimmy G. But when you're receiving a room of Jefferson, Wilson, Devonta Smith, Terry McLaurin, Mike Evans, Rashee Rice, and then thrown in Nick Chubb and Javonte Williams, that definitely stands out to me. Is that one that you like as well?
That was the one that I was going to go to immediately too, and it's a little bit risky. We hope Tua plays the entire season. I certainly do. And we need Rodgers to, be maybe not the Rodgers of old, but at least the Rodgers of 2021 instead of 2022, right? But like you said, the skill positions around him, you got Chubb there who's just going to get all of the volume he can handle. Javonte, if he comes back later in the season, that's locked up. I really love the Damian Harris pick. I think he's someone who's very, really undervalued, at least for 2023 for this season. Buffalo has just been starving for that bigger back that they can ride at the end of the season. I think Harris has its potential to get back to that. 15 touchdowns? Maybe not that high, but 15 touchdowns, I think, 2 years ago for New England when he played that role. So you could see double digits there in that kind of offense. So yeah, I really like that team.
Nice. Well, thank you ever so much for jumping on, Matt. It's been an absolute delight picking your brains and talking through with you. Remind the listeners and everybody watching, where can they find you? Where can they find your work?
Yeah, you can find all of my work over at DLF, mostly podcasting these days on the DLF Dynasty podcast with Ryan McDowell and Dan Myler. I also do the Dynasty Game Night podcast. If you like games about a game, then that might be a show for you. A game show, just like game show style games like Price is Right and things like that. And then I think that might be it. Is that all I do now? I don't know. I probably do other stuff too. And then on Twitter, you can find me at MattPriceFF. Feel free to reach out and let's chat about football anytime.
No, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Shamron. It's been an absolute delight. If you are watching, you've not hit that thumbs up button, do us a solid, and also make sure you're subscribing. As I said, Tom's killing it with best ball content at the moment, and we've got some really interesting series coming up on the Dynasty side. So make sure you're subscribed, and we'll see you again soon.